Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! It was an afternoon like many before, the peace of a quiet study room interrupted as the phone vibrated incessantly on the table. James stared at the flashing screen, his breathing quickening as he read the caller ID. Scarlett again. Reluctantly, he answered. Yes, Scarlett? You must be kidding me, James. Pick up the phone like a normal person. Scarlett's voice, equal parts exasperated and frantic, blasted through the receiver. James sighed, knowing this drama all too well. What's the issue this time, sis? He navigated through his ongoing project reports in anticipation of her answer. And this concerns me, how exactly? I need you to fill in. A bark of laughter escaped his lips. Very funny. Call your agency or whatever. It's a Saturday morning shoot, Lou. No time. Besides, this is the preview for my new line. Critics from every major publication will be there. He could practically see her pacing, copper hair flying around her face. Mir, I'm a 32-year-old English teacher with exactly 0 modeling experience. Who has almost identical measurements to Anastasia, except you're 2 inches taller, which works better for the evening gown anyway. Her voice shifted to the wheedling tone she'd perfected in childhood. Please, Lou. You know I wouldn't ask if I weren't desperate. Louis rubbed his temples. You want me to model women's clothes? Have you lost your mind? Remember when I helped you grade all those essays when you had the flu last year? Or when I let you live in my spare room rent-free after the divorce? Low blow, Mir. Fashion is art, Lou. Gender shouldn't matter. It's about how the clothes hang on a frame. Your frame happens to be perfect. Besides, with proper styling, no one will know. The silence stretched between them. I'll pay you, she added hastily, and buy you dinner at Fleming's for a month. Louis exhaled slowly, eyes drifting to the photo on his desk. Meredith and him at her first fashion show 3 years ago, her face alight with pride. She'd always supported his dreams, even the failed ones. Fine, but if anyone recognizes me, I'll never forgive you. No one will recognize you, she promised, voice brightening instantly. You'll be absolutely transformed. The studio buzzed with activity, assistants rushing about, lighting technicians adjusting equipment, makeup artists arranging their stations. Louis stood frozen in the doorway, clutching his coffee like a lifeline. There you are! Meredith materialized beside him, resplendent in a black jumpsuit, her copper hair twisted into an elegant knot. We're behind schedule. Come on. She propelled him toward a partitioned area where 2 people waited with determined expressions. This is Carlo, hair wizard. She introduced a tall man with dramatic silver streaks in his black hair. And Vivian, makeup goddess. The petite woman with elaborate eyeliner nodded. They'll work their magic, then we'll get you fitted. I still think this is insane, Louis muttered. Carlo tilted his head, studying Louis. The bone structure is excellent. Strong jaw, but we can soften that. And those cheekbones? Many women would kill for them. The eyes are perfect, Vivian added. Beautiful amber color, and those lashes. We barely need extensions. See? Meredith squeezed his shoulder. Told you. Now sit and let them work. For the next hour, Louis endured more prodding and primping than he'd experienced in his entire life. Carlo washed his shaggy brown hair, applied something that smelled chemical, and wrapped sections in foil. What are you doing to me? Louis asked, alarmed. Creating a beautiful honey blonde. Carlo replied calmly. With your coloring, it will be magnificent. Blonde? Meredith? His sister appeared, examining fabric swatches. It's temporary, Lou. Mostly, and necessary for the aesthetic. While his hair processed, Vivian approached with an array of brushes and palettes. Close your eyes and relax. I promise not to make you look garish. Louis surrendered to their ministrations, occasionally catching glimpses of his transformation in the mirror, the contouring that reshaped his face, the delicate sweep of color across his eyelids, the careful shaping of his eyebrows. After Carlo rinsed out his hair and styled it into soft waves that grazed his shoulders, Louis barely recognized himself. The honey blonde color brightened his complexion, making his amber eyes more striking. Now for the finishing touches, Vivian said, applying a natural-looking nude lipstick. And your body, Carlo added, producing what looked like silicone forms. These will give you the right silhouette under the gowns. Louis stared at the breast forms in horror. You can't be serious. Absolutely serious, Meredith interjected, appearing with a garment bag. The foundation garments are crucial. Everything in fashion starts with the proper foundation. 45 minutes later, Louis stood before a full-length mirror, stunned into silence. The person reflected back was unmistakably feminine, from the honey blonde waves framing a softly contoured face to the curves created by the sophisticated undergarments. The rose gold sequined evening gown completed the illusion, fitting his frame perfectly and catching light with every subtle movement. My God, Meredith whispered, standing behind him. You're stunning, Lou. The gown's design was both elegant and daring, a high neckline balanced by a dramatic open back, the sequined fabric clinging to his artificially created curves before flaring slightly at the knees. The matching rose gold stilettos added height he didn't need, but somehow completed the look. I don't even recognize myself, he murmured. That's the point. She squeezed his shoulders. Ready to become Louise for a few hours? The photographer, a stern-looking woman named Helena, barely glanced up when they approached the set. The new model? Good. We're behind schedule. She looked Louis over critically. Nice bone structure. Let's begin with some standard poses against the white backdrop. Walking in the stilettos proved challenging. His first few steps were wobbly until Meredith whispered, heel to toe, smaller steps than you think, and let your hips move naturally. Somehow, he made it to the backdrop without falling. Helena directed him through a series of poses, occasionally shouting adjustments. Chin down, hand on hip, not clutching it like a life preserver. Relax your shoulders. After the initial awkwardness, Louis found himself slipping into a strange rhythm. The heavy lights were hot, the poses uncomfortable, but Helena's rapid-fire clicks and occasional good provided unexpected satisfaction. Now for the editorial concept shots, Helena announced after an hour. We're doing the modern Athena sequence on the Greek column set. The remainder of the morning passed in a blur of outfit changes and elaborate setups. Louis modeled 3 more of Meredith's designs, a structured white pantsuit with gold accents, a flowing chiffon gown in deep blue, and, finally, back to the rose gold showstopper for the closing shots. By the time Helena called the final, "That's a wrap," Louis's feet were screaming, his back ached, and he had newfound respect for professional models. You were amazing, Meredith whispered, embracing him carefully to avoid disturbing the gown. Thank you. I need these shoes off immediately, he replied, and possibly a drink. Both are happening right now. 4 days later, Meredith burst into Lewis's classroom during his lunch break, waving her tablet wildly. "Lou, have you seen Fashion Forward's website today?" He looked up from his sandwich. "No, oddly enough. I don't make a habit of checking fashion websites between teaching Hamlet to reluctant teenagers." She thrust the tablet in front of him. "Look." The headline read, "Meredith Winston's bold new collection stuns critics. Mysterious model steals spotlight." Below was a full-page photo of Lewis in the rose gold gown, head tilted slightly, eyes intense beneath expertly applied makeup, blonde waves catching the light. The caption read, "Winston's unnamed model brings unexpected edge to the designer's most ambitious collection yet." "They love you!" Meredith scrolled through the article. "Listen to this. The striking blonde model brought a unique presence to Winston's designs, statuesque yet vulnerable, commanding yet approachable. Her unconventional beauty perfectly complemented the collection's theme of strength through femininity." Louis nearly choked on his sandwich. "Her?" "Well, of course. No one would guess it's you." She continued reading. "Winston refused to name her new muse, adding an air of mystery that has fashion insiders buzzing." "This is insane," Lewis muttered. "One weird favor and now I'm a mysterious muse?" "This is opportunity," Meredith countered. "My phone's been ringing non-stop since these went live this morning. 3 major magazines want to feature the collection, and they specifically requested the same model." Lewis stared at her. "No, absolutely not. One-time emergency only, remember?" "Double what I paid you for the first shoot," she offered. "Plus, these would be prestigious publications. Vogue, Harper's Bazaar. Career-making exposure for my brand. For professional models, maybe. I have a career teaching Chaucer and Shakespeare. Which you can still do. These shoots would be occasional weekends, completely separate from your real life." She grabbed his hand. "Please, Lou. These opportunities don't come twice. The critics see something special in how my clothes look on you." He glanced at the photo again. The person captured there, poised, elegant, confident, seemed entirely separate from his everyday self. "Let me think about it," he finally said. Meredith squealed and hugged him. "You're the best brother ever!" "I haven't said yes," he protested, but somehow he knew he would. The Harper's Bazaar shoot 2 weeks later was more elaborate than the first. This time, Lewis arrived with less trepidation, almost curious about his transformation. Carlo greeted him enthusiastically. "My beautiful canvas returns. We'll refresh your color today. The blonde was magnificent against your skin tone." The makeup and styling process felt less alien now. Lewis found himself asking questions about techniques, watching closely as Vivienne demonstrated contouring tricks. "You're a quick study," she remarked, blending highlighter along his cheekbones. "Most new models take months to understand what we're doing." "I'm a teacher," he replied automatically. "Learning is in my blood." This shoot featured Meredith's urban botanical collection, bold floral prints on structured silhouettes. The photographer, a renowned Italian named Giovanni, was more theatrical than Helena, but equally demanding. "Feel the fabric," he called, as Lewis posed in a dramatic floor-length gown covered in oversized crimson poppies against an emerald background. "Let it be alive with you! You are not separate from the dress! You are its soul!" Lewis found himself responding to the direction, experimenting with angles and expressions. When Giovanni showed him some test shots between setups, he was startled by how different each pose made the garments look. "You have natural instinct," Giovanni said approvingly. "Very rare." By the third magazine shoot, a month later, Rumors about Meredith Winston's secret model had spread throughout the fashion industry. Speculation ranged from reclusive European aristocrat to former ballet dancer. No one suspected a high school English teacher from Connecticut. The money was excellent, enough to start paying down his student loans, and the scheduling worked around his teaching. Lewis maintained strict boundaries. No runway shows, no interviews, nothing that might expose his identity. Meredith respected these conditions while gleefully watching her brand's profile rise. "We need to give you a professional name," she said after the Vogue shoot. "They keep asking, and Meredith's mystery model is getting old." Lewis considered this while removing the last traces of eyeliner in her guest bathroom. "What about Louise? Close enough to my real name that I'll respond naturally." "Louise Winston would be too obvious." "How about my mother's maiden name, Louise Winters?" Meredith clapped her hands. "Perfect. Elegant, memorable, and technically true." "The blue dress is divine on you," Carlo declared, adjusting a strand of Louis' blonde hair. "This shade against your coloring. Perfection." 6 months into his unexpected modeling career, Lewis found himself in a ritzy hotel suite preparing for Elle magazine's annual Designers to Watch feature. Today, he would model Meredith's signature cocktail dress, a vibrant red creation with architectural details that had become her brand's calling card. "The hair has grown," Vivian noted, applying setting powder. "The extensions blend perfectly now." Lewis touched the blonde waves that now reached past his shoulders. He'd been maintaining the color between shoots, finding the bright shade suited him better than his natural mousy brown. "We're ready for the red dress now," Meredith announced, entering with the garment. The crimson silk felt cool against his skin as they helped him into it. The dress embodied Meredith's aesthetic, classic silhouette with unexpected details, in this case, an asymmetrical neckline and subtle origami-like folds at the hip. "I've been meaning to ask," Lewis said, as his sister adjusted the draping. "Why did you think I'd work as a model in the first place? Most brothers would have laughed you out of the room." Meredith smiled thoughtfully. "Remember when we were kids and put on those plays for Mom and Dad? You always wanted the dramatic roles, regardless of gender. You were a better Ophelia than I ever was." "That was make-believe. We were children." "Yes, but you had this quality. You understood how to embody a character completely." She stepped back to assess the dress. "That's what makes you such a natural at this. You don't just wear the clothes. You become the person they're designed for." The photographer interrupted before Lewis could respond, but her words lingered. Was that what he'd been doing these past months? Becoming Louise rather than merely impersonating a woman? The Elle feature catapulted both Meredith Winston and her exclusive model, Louise Winters, into fashion's upper echelons. More shoots followed, each more prestigious than the last. Lewis maintained his teaching position, but increasingly found his thoughts drifting to upcoming bookings during faculty meetings. His colleagues noticed changes. The growing blonde hair he explained as trying something new. The manicured nails justified as proper grooming. The subtle shifts in his posture and movements that came from months of modeling coaching. "You seem different lately," remarked Howard, the history teacher, during lunch. "More confident." Lewis smiled. "Just growing into myself, I suppose." At home, evidence of Louise accumulated. A closet section with practice clothes Meredith insisted he needed, a drawer of specialized undergarments, an expanding collection of skincare products Carlo had recommended. Sometimes he caught himself unconsciously adopting Louise's mannerisms, the graceful hand gestures, the more fluid walk. The division between Louis and Louise began blurring further when a major cosmetics brand requested Louise Winters for their new campaign. The money offered was substantial, enough to potentially take a year's sabbatical from teaching. It's a huge opportunity, Meredith argued during dinner at her loft. Your face on billboards across the country. That's exactly the problem, Lewis countered, pushing pasta around his plate. I've managed to keep this separate from my real life so far, but that kind of exposure... Is that still how you see it? Your real life versus this? She studied him carefully. You've been Louise almost as often as Louis this year. He set down his fork. What are you suggesting? Nothing. Just an observation. She refilled their wine glasses. You seem happier lately. More alive. I wonder if that's entirely due to the extra income. That's ridiculous, he said automatically, but found himself considering her words later that night, staring at side-by-side photos on his phone. Lewis, in a tweed jacket at a faculty meeting. Louise in a midnight blue evening gown at a Vanity Fair shoot. Same person, worlds apart. Which version felt more authentic? The cosmetics campaign changed everything. Despite his initial reservations, Louis accepted the offer, rationalizing that heavy makeup would continue disguising his identity. The first day on set, however, he realized this shoot was different. We want natural beauty for this concept, explained the creative director. Minimal makeup, simple styling, the real Louise Winters. Panic flared. My contract with Meredith Winston requires a certain aesthetic. He improvised. The blonde hair, the dramatic styling, it's part of our professional agreement. After hasty consultations, they compromised. Slightly more makeup than initially planned, slightly less than previous shoots. The resulting images captured something between Louis and Louise, a vulnerability he hadn't revealed before. When the first billboard appeared in Times Square, Lewis took the train to see it. There he was, 40 feet tall, honey blonde hair flowing around his shoulders, wearing a simple white shirt, looking directly at the camera with quiet confidence. The tagline read, "Beauty beyond definition." Standing in the crowded square, anonymous among tourists, Lewis experienced a strange sensation, pride mingled with recognition. The person on that billboard wasn't an act or a character. It was simply another facet of himself, one he'd been keeping separated from his real life through increasingly arbitrary boundaries. That evening, he called Meredith. I think I need to take a leave of absence from teaching, he said without preamble. Because of the billboards? Partly, but mostly because I need time to figure things out. He took a deep breath. I don't think I can keep compartmentalizing like this. Her voice softened. What are you saying, Lou? I'm not entirely sure yet, but I think Louise might be more than just a professional identity. The silence stretched between them. Whatever you decide, Meredith finally said. I'm here, always. The sabbatical request was approved with minimal questions. 10 years of dedicated teaching had earned him some latitude. Lewis sublet his apartment and moved temporarily into Meredith's guest room, the same one he'd occupied briefly after his divorce years earlier. The first weeks passed in a flurry of modeling assignments, now unrestrained by teaching schedules. Between shoots, Lewis began experimenting, wearing subtle makeup at home, growing more comfortable in the feminine clothes that increasingly filled his closet. Conversations with Meredith grew deeper, often stretching late into the night. I always felt like I was playing a role, he confessed one evening. Even before Louise, being Louis, the serious teacher, the briefly married man, the reliable brother, it never felt entirely authentic. And Louise feels more real? He considered the question carefully. Not exactly. More like Louise gave me permission to discover parts of myself I'd been suppressing. The boundaries between us keep dissolving. She reached for his hand. Have you considered that maybe there aren't two separate people? 3 months into his sabbatical, Louis began consulting with specialists, therapists specializing in gender identity, endocrinologists, voice coaches. The discussions were tentative at first, hypothetical, but gradually grew more concrete. Transition isn't one single decision, his therapist explained. It's a series of choices, some reversible, some not. The key is determining what feels authentic for you. For someone who had stumbled backwards into questioning his gender identity, Lewis approached the process with characteristic thoroughness, researching options, weighing considerations, discussing possibilities with his small circle of confidants. The modeling work provided both financial security and an unexpected sandbox for exploration. Each photo shoot became an opportunity to embody different facets of femininity, trying on personas along with the clothes. 6 months after taking leave from teaching, he made his first definitive decision. I want to start hormone therapy, he told Meredith over breakfast. Low dose at first, but I'm ready to take that step. She squeezed his arm. Are you nervous? Terrified, and absolutely certain. The physical changes began subtly, softening skin, redistributing body fat, gently rounding features that makeup had previously needed to disguise. The emotional shifts were equally significant, a growing sense of alignment between inner self and outer presentation. 1 year after that first emergency photo shoot, Meredith's brand celebrated its anniversary with an intimate gathering for fashion insiders. Lewis, now living as Louise full-time, accompanied her as both featured model and sister. You remember my brother Louis? Meredith said to early arrivals, before smiling warmly. Well, please meet my sister Louise. The copper-haired designer and her blonde model sister made a striking pair, their similar features highlighting their relationship, while their contrasting colorings created visual interest, a fact noted by several fashion photographers present. I don't know how we didn't see it sooner, remarked one editor. The family resemblance is obvious now. Later, as guests mingled over champagne, a young designer approached Louise. Your journey has been so inspiring, she said. The way you've transformed while remaining true to yourself. It's given many of us courage. Louise smiled, smoothing her crimson dress, the signature piece from Meredith's collection. The irony is that I never intended any of this. Sometimes the most important journeys begin with a simple favor. Across the room, Meredith caught her eye and raised her glass in a silent toast to unexpected beginnings and authentic discoveries, to the siblings they had always been and were now becoming. In the soft evening light, Louise's honey blonde hair gleamed as she returned the gesture, finally comfortable in her own skin. The emergency stand-in, who had discovered herself in front of the camera, then found the courage to live that truth behind it as well. Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!